So, can I get anything better to look at? Nope, just the bright lights of daylight savings time. So, haven't spoken on here for a bit. Just thought I would talk about the last couple of weeks and why they've been exhausting, what else. And I'm not sure about all of it. Just stress, I guess, the usual. But I went for the results of my long-awaited cognitive testing a week ago. No, not even a week ago, maybe 5 days ago. And it's a bit of a drive. But I got there on time, and I sat there waiting for the doctor. It was going on for a while, so I went and asked the receptionist, and she said, well, she usually tends to run late. And I said, well, yeah, I was 5 minutes late, but it's not like that. And so she said no, but she'll be here. So I went back and sat for what added up to 2 hours, in addition to the hour that I had been on the road to get there. So I don't know. I wish that were nothing for me, but it wasn't. I was getting tired and sore. So she came out, long story short. She told me things, but none of them quite added up. I don't know. I think she was finishing the results of my tests, maybe. Anyway, and then she asked me about how I'd been in the couple of months since I'd seen her, and my appointment had gotten postponed, and so I had to tell her that. And then she said, well, what happened to me was that my dad passed away. Of course, I said, oh, I'm sorry, and I knew she had mentioned him and that he was in his 90s, and it had occurred to me that that could have been part of it, but he had passed away 2 months ago, it seemed. But people behave differently in these circumstances, so I tried to keep my calm. And so then she started on the purpose of the meeting, and she went over the things that I did well at the beginning, supposedly, I think similar to the other story, to get on my good side, but maybe it's always part of the meeting. And we talked about the fact that I went downhill after a certain amount of time, like 2 hours, and I said, I can't continue this today. I was really kind of getting mad that she wasn't just understanding that and let me go, because of how awful it feels to try to function in and be demanded upon for these testing results when you're in my condition, and I don't know who else's condition on here is like that. I'm curious. So she did let me go, but she said this is going back after my first couple of sessions with her. We'd have to schedule an extra one to finish because I had to go home early. I said whatever it takes. But the way it all happened is that the holidays came into play, and so I didn't get back there for another month, and than I was, or I got back right before the holidays, but I was supposed to get my results in January, but that was postponed, and I got back in early March. So I don't know. It was frustrating, but I didn't want to focus on all that. I just wanted my results, and so she told me I did well, I could do well, but obviously there was something limiting me where that wasn't normal, and um, I was trying to start to tell her the answers because I was getting tired again and weary. But so then she was going to give me the list of reasons why she thought I had this problem and the possible suggested steps to help me. And she went on with that, mostly the list of suggested steps, and I tried to suggest reasons, some of which she was willing to acknowledge and some of which she wasn't in my recollection, because now it's almost a week later, okay, 5 days later, but I haven't actually gotten my copy of the results. She wanted to work to finish them and would put them onto my chart online soon, but probably not that very evening. So I didn't like some of her suggestions. I know that at least one of her suggestions I've already tried 2, if not 3 times at that same hospital, and she said she had gone through my chart. And so I just reminded her that it didn't work out. And in a word, this is the CPAP. And I said, I've heard there's a newer treatment. I believe it's an implant, and I would be willing to consider that, or at least hear about it, because it would be different and it wouldn't make me feel strangled like the CPAP did every time that I tried it. And she said, oh, well, you have multiple health problems. And I said, I know that, but if at least someone told me that's why you can't try the implant, then that would be one thing. But I think I asked my own doctor, primary care, and she really didn't give me an answer either. So that was one. Another one, I remember thinking and saying I had already tried once, but I hadn't tried it twice. So maybe I would try it, but I can't remember now what it was. Really not a lot. And she was putting words on it, which frankly I didn't agree with, like vascular dementia, which my dad had at when he was, say, 80, 85. He had strokes and he couldn't come back 100% from that. He couldn't think of words. I have that problem for sure, but I haven't had any strokes that anyone's been willing to tell me about. But, you know, she thought it could happen, and forget why, but she thought it could. The fact I do have vascular, I have heart disease, cardiovascular, coronary artery, but what's the word for it? It's not a good word for it, but narrowing of the arteries from the buildup of plaque. I've had that for a long time and had a lot of procedures for it, and I said, but would that be causing dementia? She said it could, and so I guess that was something I hadn't heard before, but you know, it really was no acknowledgement of chronic fatigue syndrome or what it is or what it might be, even though I said it seems now that people talk more about long COVID as having the symptoms and effects that we used to talk about chronic fatigue syndrome has. And she said, yes, that's true. And I said, but I had COVID, but I recovered very quickly. I took the Paxlovid when the doctor offered it to me. I said yes, and I took it, and I was much better in 5 days. I was testing negative in 7 days. So it still doesn't explain to me, what people think about chronic fatigue syndrome these days and what they would have a person in my situation do about it and about the effects that it's having. And so it was one thing that I came out not just tired, but inconclusive about what her conclusions were, but that she wouldn't provide me with a copy of my results that she had right there in front of her, all typed up, but she had to correct these last few things that I suppose it was because I disagreed with them or something that she hadn't known about me. And would upload it soon. And then she sort of mentioned that the hospital has also come to the idea that an extra round of management should see case notes before they're released. And I said, I've come into that idea. I haven't come to the idea of come into that situation with a different department, different doctor, and he was trying to help me, but I questioned something and that bothered the higher ups, and so I kind of get that. And so I left. My sister was waiting me to come over to dinner because she lives nearby there instead of nearby where I live. And she works in a field where she has clients who get these kinds of tests sometimes. And so she was like, it's usually only 1 hour for the results. I don't understand how you were 3 hours late. And I said, well, the doctor was 2 hours late, and it took her 2 hours to give me my results. So, and I didn't have them, so I couldn't, especially as it was getting later in the day and into the evening, I couldn't relay them to her very well, and I didn't want to be challenged about them. So that's how that all went. It's been 5 days, I guess, and I haven't been feeling well. I think it took a toll on me physically and mentally. I drove back home that same night just for various reasons, and then caught up with me. Like by Monday, I felt worse than usual, body aches and mental fatigue, and just trying to get back to normal baseline before I have another another appointment in another department of the hospital tomorrow, and I have one of my care assistants who will come with me, and I'm going to take the handicapped transportation instead of driving myself, and hopefully they don't double my transportation time, but they have been known to do that. So that's where that is. I don't know if anyone has any combination of these kind of situations in their coping with this condition or other chronic conditions. Occasionally I hear from people who do mention these things, but not on the very first time I mention to them, so maybe that's what's happening. Ooh, 15 minutes. I've lost total track time. Maybe for once I'll edit something, huh? Well, thank you for joining me and have a good evening.